The ANC in the Free State is ready for next year's celebrations and a probe into Mexico's interior minister's helicopter crash. Good morning, I'm Karabo Malatsi. Free State ANC officials say that the Mangaung municipality is ready for the influx of thousands of supporters to its centenary celebrations in January next year. Free State ANC Secretary Sibongile Besani says at least 60 heads of state are also expected to attend the event. Besani says the party will also be responsible for the accommodation of more than 120 senior party officials in the week leading up to the main event and some 100,000 political pilgrims.
This is a party event, but it is not an event for the party. It is a journey of freedom for all South Africans that have contributed to ensure that we get this new dispensation. So in that sense, we are celebrating a journey of our struggle, a journey of what we have achieved as a people in South Africa. The festivities are our responsibility as the party, and since our preparations, we have been involved in many events during the last 2 years or so. That has been built by the party itself.
South Africa will run out of maize as early as next month. According to the Chief Executive Officer of Farmers Group Grain South Africa, Jannie de Villiers, export orders were more than the surplus available. Nevertheless, he says the predicted shortage should not affect consumers, as the situation will encourage farmers to produce more.
There might be a little bit of a spike in the price for a while, but that also will stimulate the market locally. The farmers are ready to plant. We're just waiting for the rain. And I think that will encourage farmers to grow more, and it will create a surplus again, and then we will have low prices again for the local consumers. So I think all of it is just what I think the minister called dynamics of the market. The market is working well. I think the people don't have to worry that we're going to run totally out of maize, but there's some consequences that could have been avoided.
One person has died after he lost control of his vehicle near the Petro SA refinery at Mossel Bay in the Southern Cape. Emergency Services spokesperson Vota Jacobs says the vehicle overturned during the accident. The road has meanwhile been reopened to traffic after the scene was cleared. The deceased was the only person in the vehicle. Ministers and experts from about 20 countries, which fear they are the most vulnerable to global climate change, are launching an appeal to rich Western nations for more help. They are holding a two-day conference in Bangladesh, where experts say a 1-meter rise in sea level would flood 15% of the country and create millions of climate refugees. The BBC's Ambrashan Ethrajan reports from Dakar.
There is a consensus that climate change is having an impact on the global environment. But countries like Bangladesh, Bhutan and the Maldives argue that they are likely to suffer the worst effects of climate change in the coming decades, and they require urgent help. These countries argue that developed nations, which are responsible for the greatest amount of carbon emissions, should compensate poorer nations facing the catastrophic impact of global warming. They also want richer nations to fast-track distribution of a special fund created to help poorer nations in the previous rounds of climate negotiations.
And finally, still in news abroad, Mexican officials say initial results from an investigation into the helicopter crash in which the Interior Minister was killed indicate it was an accident. The Minister, Francisco Blake Mora, and 7 other people died on Friday when their helicopter came down in fog on a remote hillside outside Mexico City. Blake, a close ally of President Felipe Calderon, was a key figure in the country's war on drugs. The BBC's Vanessa Bushletter reports.
The investigation to determine the cause of the crash is still underway, but the Mexican Transport Minister, Dionisio Pérez Jacome, said there was no evidence it had been anything but an accident. Mr. Blake, a close ally of the President, Felipe Calderon, was a key figure in the country's war on drugs. On Saturday, the President paid tribute to Mr. Blake at a memorial service, saying the best way to honor his memory was to keep fighting with great conviction for the things the minister stood for.